Here we are, friends, ladies and gentlemen, and sisters and brothers and others. Everyone's welcome here at Dark Night of the Podcast. That's how it is, how it'll always be. Come join us for another episode. Thank you for joining us. And I'm going to say that Troy and I, after seeing the reception from last week's episode, which we covered, I Know Who Killed Me, we just decided we're going to cover it again. We're just fuck it. We're just not even going to worry about this title this week. We're just covering the title again. I Know Who Killed Me. Buckle up. A whole new episode, same movie.
We're starting from the ending this time and working our way to the beginning.
What a mystery. Ooh. No, seriously though, thank you, guys. Guys, gals, everyone across the board. I can't think of anything that excites me more than getting a comment or a feedback or a commentary from someone who listens to our podcast, actually like wanting to stir up conversation. Like really, like every once in a while I'll get a ding on my Instagram and I'll look and someone just says, this is the first time we watched this movie. Troy and I were just talking about this. First time I watched this movie, the podcast brought it to my attention. I'm so happy I watched it. Here is why. That really makes my week. And I just want to thank, anyone who's reached out recently, especially over this last episode, though. I Know Who Kills Me. I knew that this was going to be a fan favorite because gays can't get enough of Lilo, and neither can I. And so it was a hot topic to discuss, but really, I am so happy that it struck a chord, and it got me like just really excited to just jump into another episode. Something totally different, though, Troy. I love that you picked something that couldn't be further away from I Know Who Killed Me. Like, this is a completely different movie, and all the better for it.
Yeah, I'm with you. We were just talking. I just want to say I love the fact that there are people that seem to watch all of the movies that we cover. I'm thrilled that I've been able to introduce people to a gem like Epitaph and that fucking Martha. Oh, we're still remaking that with you as Martha. Yeah. So that's coming. That's coming.
It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah. But no, yeah. This film this week, Roger, a doozy. I had mentioned last week that it's one of the few films that ever really like scared me. Like I was definitely creeped out watching this the first time. And I rented it way back in 2001. A little side story here. I don't know how many people know this. I don't even know if you know this, Roger, but I moved to Vegas. This is my second time living in Vegas. I moved to Vegas back in around 2001, late 2001. It was very short-lived. I moved out here. I was going through some like turmoil life stuff. I just got out of a relationship, which at that time was like 4 years, but in gay years for a little 20-some-year-old, that was like, 40 years. So I just wanted a change. So I packed up, moved to Vegas, was here for like literally like a month before I moved back. But I'm landing the plane here. Session 9 in my little apartment that I rented here in Vegas, little $500 a month apartment. I rented Session 9 at the Blockbuster Video, and I watched it in my apartment in Vegas at night, and it scared the shit out of me. That was the only film I rented when I lived in Vegas the first time.
That's a cool little personal story to have with this film. And you've always spoken so fondly of it, and I really want to acknowledge that there are very few titles that you have raised up in such a manner. One of them was with Lake Mungo, and I went into Lake Mungo completely blind, having no idea what to anticipate. Blew my skirt up. Blew it up over my shoulders. Blew it all the way up. I was just blown away with that movie. And so, I hold your opinion in very high regard. And when you kind of gave, comparison tones, saying that it had kind of a similar effect, a similar impact, if you will, that really excited me. And so I've really been anticipating this title for a while. I almost watched it a few separate times on my own accord, just because you see it come up on streaming. That artwork is really noticeable. It's that that wheelchair at the end of the hallway, and then there's that really weird font choice that they have for Session 9 that actually makes sense when you look back and now actually watch the movie. Up to that point, that poster always just stood out to me because it seemed really just different. It doesn't seem like anything else I could think of. And so it's always grabbed my attention. I've almost watched it, but I was like, no. Troy has mentioned this movie multiple times. I want to save this first experience for this podcast. So it's all been building up to this, and I say that a lot, but really here, like, this is one that I've been anticipating. And I have to say, like, after watching it, Troy, just you're comparing it to Lake Mungo in like overall tone makes complete sense to me. They're two very different movies.
Mm-hmm.
One is film documentary style. This one is not. This is just a straight up movie. But it still manages to create this like building sense of unease and like further developing the understanding of what exactly is going on, like peeling back layers of an onion and managing to like shock and surprise with revelations over the course of the film that takes the viewer aback upon first viewing. So this does manage to capture that same kind of spark, almost like that wow factor that Lake Mungo had for me. I'll say that I think Lake Mungo is a stronger film overall, especially in how it wraps everything up. This movie has some phenomenal concepts that I would have loved to have seen pushed just a little bit further. And I'm going to say that, like, I like this movie quite a lot. I mean, I really like this film quite a lot. But there are a couple things that I feel just felt incomplete about this movie.
Yeah. I agree with you. I do think that Lake Mungo is probably the stronger film narratively. This film we're going to jump right into it because that's the best way to go about this. We're discussing the 2001 psychological thriller Session 9, directed by Brad Anderson, starring some very familiar faces. Like this cast, I did not realize, wow, there's people that people actually would know. I mean, David Caruso, I knew that, but you even have like, I totally forgot that Josh Lucas was in this. Like totally forgot, and then you have Brendan Sexton III, who is known for playing opposite of Heather Matarazzo in Welcome to the Dollhouse. He was in Boys Don't Cry with Hilary Swank, one of the antagonists in that film. He always does really strong character work. So it was cool to see him in this film, sprouting that mullet, rocking that fucking mullet, Roger. But I think the real star of this show, let's put this out here, and this may be why some people don't necessarily gel with this film. The real star of the show and what the promotional materials were hyping is the Danvers State Mental Hospital. This location is solely responsible for creating the atmosphere, the tension, the creepiness of this movie. And really cool because Brad Anderson, the director, lived in Massachusetts and he used to drive by this hospital. It's a real hospital, real mental hospital. I mean, all the history that they talk about in the film is real, but he always thought this would be a great place to film a horror movie. And he made it happen. And I think like 4 months after they wrapped on the film, the hospital was actually tore down. But this location is incredible. And I want to say, like, the cinematography in this film, the camera work is so exquisite and takes full advantage of the location. There's those sweeping aerial shots. There's those long shots of the hallways. There's really cool inverted camera angles. They fully take advantage of this location, and it is the real star of the film.
I really think that this film, and I mean this, I truly think that this is the perfect follow-up to last week's episode. Because while it is so tonally different from the film I Know Who Kills Me, a lot of the major aspects that made that film not work are such strong points for this movie. And it's such a great like counter comparison because both films are disconnected, disjointed, unfolding storylines. They're mysteries at their core, where you as the viewer are learning exactly what's unfolding, shocking revelations that come about, and things that, in the hands of a team and talent that are not up to the caliber of the script. And not to say that the script I Know Who Kills Me, not to say it was some masterclass script, but like I think that if there had been some subtlety and maybe like some of the choices just were made differently. This film here has a lot of internalized moments, a lot of great character development that's told. In some ways, I don't want to say in similar fashion, but the way it you kind of unfold and learn things over the course of the film, it hit certain key beats that made me think of I Know Who Kills Me. But here, you have a stunning location, on display, as you just said. You have a team of fantastic performers, and you very unique in when you think of like the traditional formula that you're going to see for honestly any genre film, especially horror. There ain't no scream queen here. This is a cast of all men. I mean, they're rough around the edges. These are not sexy looking men. They're not in any way sexualized whatsoever. And that, I mean, these are just relatable everyday guys who are having like kind of their personal lives unraveling while trying to work alongside each other on a project. They're struggling, they're coping with their own personal issues. And so like the fact that you've got these men who are just phenomenal actors playing these really believable lived in characters that I feel like I know them coming out of this movie. I feel like I know these men. And then you look at something like I Know Who Kills Me, in which I look at that. I don't feel like the actors in any way connected with that material or had an understanding of the world they were existing in. This does so many things right, and it makes it all the more enjoyable to watch this. And following up after that last review, watching a movie like this that's so character focused, that's so smart. This is a smart film, and it knows how to play on your emotions. It knows how to play on your expectations. And I was just really impressed by just like how they handled the material, like across the board. It's beautifully shot. There's a lot of motion, sweeping fluid motion. There's a lot of slider shots. Conversations are paced naturally. Everything, just the way that they film, even when you come into the movie, these very close-up dialogue conversations that feel almost, they're very uncomfortable in how they're handled, and they should feel uncomfortable. It's just really, really a well-handled piece of cinema. So I do have to say, Troy, like, filmmaker to filmmaker, I appreciate you showing me this movie, because I feel like I came out of this and I learned something in how to develop a great film on one amazing location. I mean, I'm sure it was a fucking pain in the ass to get that location, but they have one major location, they have a tiny group of talent, and they made a fucking phenomenal film. And it's really like, you got to just say something about, like, they took a very simple idea and they did something amazing with it.
Yeah, I mean, at the core, it's also a character study of these four men that work so closely together. And first of all, the opening shot of the film is that damn wheelchair at the end of the hallway, which, I mean, it's I don't know what about it. It's creepy. It's creepy. It's a creepy shot. Every time you see that fucking wheelchair at the end of the hallway, I get shivers down my spine for some reason. But then, you hear that scream, and then it kind of transitions into a very, very close up. And you're right, the camera knows how to operate to highlight the intimacy and the deep conversations that these characters are having, because the camera is literally right up on who we find out is Gordon's face. And right away, I mean, the film starts us into his lived in experience that I feel like a lot of people will be able to relate to, because what we find out is that his friend, his coworker, his partner, Phil, played by David Caruso from NYPD Blue, that's probably where everyone knows him from, recognizes that he looks tired. And we find out that Gordon has recently had a baby with his wife, Wendy, and the baby has an ear infection. So it's keeping them up. It's keeping them up all night. So, and Phil is like, I understand if you need anything, I'm there for you. So it's such a brief moment, but it paints these characters. We know so much about them already. We know how close they are. Like I said, I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to what Gordon is going through. I mean, it's literally less than 30 seconds, and you feel like these two characters, and these two characters have known each other for a long time.
The acting, like, I just can't go on enough about how phenomenal the acting is in this movie. And right off the bat, from this moment, and it's a mix of the very natural, subtle performances that feel very intimate. There's a lot of intimate moments here where they will amplify, like, the audio in the mix really amplifies, like, the background, the sound of the insects, the sound of this, like, this big open space. They'll really amplify it, so it feels very almost like desolate, and like they are in positions where it feels very lonely at times. Again, that plays very much into the film's favor. There's lots of great choices made, but I love how close and tight these conversations are. Again, like, this film, right off the bat, creates a sense of unease and dread that even in the moments that don't feel like they necessarily should feel uneasy, they do. And I think that's really spectacular, the fact that they're able to do that. Like, there are so many moments in this film where I started to feel uncomfortable or nervous, or not to say scared, but it started to pull that out of me a little bit. And I was like, nothing's even happening. But it's just a matter of adding the right kind of piano keys at certain points. There's a lot of little moments where there'll be ominous tones or sounds coming into play. And it's just at the right cue, at the right time to create the sensation in you as a viewer that, like, it feels like they're almost toying with me. And I love that. It's just so smart in how they manage to do that. But yeah, these relationships feel very, very lived in. And this relationship between these two men, you come to find these are the leads. And again, they're unassuming. You wouldn't expect these two guys to take on these leading roles. And it starts in it starts from such a regular everyman kind of place that I don't even think you expect it to go the places it does. This whole movie sets you up for one thing and you just don't anticipate that it's going to go there, you know?
What we find out is that Gordon owns basically a asbestos removal company, and they are at the Danvers Hospital to bid on a project to remove the asbestos from the hospital. Now, the security guard shows up, and there's this interesting little conversation that Phil has with the security guard about why, if this hospital closed in 1985, why do they need a security guard? Why do you have a gun? Like, nobody's trying to get out, right? And the security guard says, well, no, we are trying to prevent people from getting in. And he says something that's very creepy to me. I don't know why this creeps me out, but like, and this actually happened. Like, this is real. Like, I was reading the history of the when the hospital closed in 85, when there were patients that when the hospital closed, they're basically kicked out onto the street, and they don't know where to go. Their whole life, or the last couple of years of their life, have been this hospital. So what do, Roger? They go back. They try to go back. And that's what the security guard says. He's like, we get like patients that try to come back in, and we get squatters, we get all kinds of shit. So we just have to try to keep them out. And that to me is like so like sad, right? We talk about a mental health problem that we have in this country, and we have to very much acknowledge that it is a thing. There is a lot of people that are suffering with mental illness, and I'm not even suggesting that we go back to these types of institutions, but think about that. All of these people were just released with no further help, no further therapy sessions, just thrown out on the street. And that's kind of how we treat mental health now, right?
Yeah, yeah. One thing I think that's really genius about this film is they kind of just let the hospital and the story of this building, and I don't know how much of it is technically true, and I don't know how much of it is technically fantastical, but overall they kind of just let it do its own thing. They tell a lot of history and backstory, but there's very little time spent here developing a further fantastical element. Like, the elements of this film that start to dip into the paranormal are shockingly subtle. And really, it is just this place, and this morbid place with this dark history behind it, that becomes all consuming. And a lot of the fear that the men have within this building is their own interests, their own paranoias, their own fears, their own struggles surfacing, you know?
Well, okay, so if you've not seen Session 9, I want you to stop this and watch it, because I feel like you don't want anything spoiled for you. And I will say, I'm going to say it right now, that a lot of people that aren't fans of this film point to it being misleading the viewer. Okay, let's be real. This film leads you to at the beginning to think that it's going to be one thing, right? That it's going to be a film about these guys being terrorized inside of a haunted asylum. We've seen it, Ghost Encounters, that sort of found footage film,
Right.
did the same thing. That is not what this film is.
No.
I mean, you get a few little things at the beginning that maybe hint at, oh, there may be some paranormal elements to it. For example, they go in, they tour the facility. Right away, you see like there are bathtubs out in the middle of the floor, and the guard proceeds to tell them that is where hydrotherapy took place. And also, at the time, the Danvers Hospital was like the leading hospital for lobotomies in the world. They go all through the area. They go downstairs into the tunnels where they kept the extreme patients. And this is when Gordon sees that wheelchair at the end of the hallway, and he is transfixed by it. And our first paranormal, quote unquote, thing happens where we hear a voice say, it's a deep voice that says, "Hello, Gordon." And that's it. And then he is shocked out of it, and they continue their tour. And Gordon Gordon is a desperate man in a lot of ways, and his desperation leads him to do something that unfortunately leads to everything else that happens in the movie, and that is him basically overselling their abilities to get the job, right? Because he finds out that all of these other companies that have bid on the job have said it's going to take like 4 weeks. He says that it could be done in 2 weeks. Phil's not happy about this, but to even cement it further, when they're leaving, Phil has to go get his bag. He left it inside. Gordon tells the man, the foreman, that, you know what? We can do this in a week. I can get it done in a week. I need this job desperately. He is a desperate man, and the old cliche, desperate times call for desperate measures. We don't fully understand just how desperate he is, but back to what I'm saying, like we think like this film is set up to be a paranormal haunting film, and it is not at all.
It is not, but there is enough of an undertone that leaves you questioning what is at play. And that, I think, part of me, and I'm not going to go too far, this is what the wrap up really will be, but part of me wishes they would have just pushed just a little bit harder, because there's so much potential in this now non-existing location, which I was not aware of that. So God, that's a bummer. But also, they are very intentional when they do build up to certain moments that do truly become terrifying. There are a few of them, and they are played perfectly, but I mean, I understand completely why there are probably fans of the genre who feel, I don't want to say ripped off, like, no, you got a great story here, like you have a great piece of cinema here, but I can understand why maybe someone might feel like, oh, I really was expecting one thing and that is not why I got, because yeah, I yearn for a little bit more of that too. I'm going to say that, Troy. I just felt like it was opening it up the door enough to touch on that, and then it just doesn't go all in, and I'm kind of like, oh, but could you have? I think you could have.
The film, yeah, open. The ending is open to interpretation, although I don't think it's as open ended as one thinks. Like I have a very solid view of what I think the ending is, and that's why I'm saying this movie is not a paranormal movie at all. It's a movie about a man's descent into madness and what triggers it. There's also, they go in that room, Roger, where there's like it looks like a 14-year-old girl's room with posters taped all over the wall that are still there, and basically the guy tells Phil and Gordon that this was like the art therapy room where patients could go in and draw on the wall and put pictures on the wall as a form of creative expression because it supposedly helped their self-esteem. After Gordon basically begs for the job, we get a recurring scene that recurs throughout the film, and it becomes like increasingly more depressing the more we see it. And it is Gordon pulling up to his house, but he doesn't like pull up in the driveway or anything. He parks across the street from it. His wife is outside with the baby, and it's this scene, before we see the scene repeated several times, but like what you see here, Roger, is kind of sad. It's a man that is like struggling to have to go in and live this life, that he necessarily doesn't want, as we find out, or what's hinted at, or what another character says. He never wanted to be a father. And now he is like stuck with this wife, this baby. And you see him almost like several times, like hyping himself up to go inside the house. And it's kind of sad. But at this moment, we see that he does have roses and a bottle of champagne, signifying that a celebration. So we can infer that he got the job, right?
Yeah. I mean, this sequence is really quite pivotal. Like overall, like what unfolds here, this moment is reflected on and flashed back to multiple times. It feels very disjointed in how it's approached here. There's this moment between him and his wife who's on the lawn with the baby, and you see this like exasperated smile. Like she just looks like weary, and he is fucking over it. And he's looking at photos of this fat baby puking all over itself, trying to get himself in the moment, and like you can just tell he is fucking weary, like he is just exhausted. And but what to me, what's truly unsettling about this moment, and because there's a whole bit of her walking inside as she enters the room, she steps aside, you see this boiling pot of water, like pasta's being made, something's boiling, and so you have this really eerie voiceover where she acknowledges the flowers, and then all of a sudden the moment is broken by the sound of a generator. So it's an audio cue that cuts into the next day. And that's all you get. Like that's all you get at this moment. But when you reflect back on the sequence here, something big happens here that you like that when you look at this character and where he's at and how he's feeling and how just overall like what we've learned so far. What's really interesting to me about this movie is like this beat here, technically, like he does a really horrible thing. And for what follows after this, he almost seems oblivious to it at times. And that's really like shocking to me in how they play the character. And there's little things you look at in the character of Gordon that have changed. And he does eventually unravel. That's what's happening. The rest of the story is his unraveling. But, you know, right off the bat, like right after this, the next day, he's working, he's interacting with people, he's reasonably normal. And I just think that's really kind of shocking. And I'm curious here what the explanation is regarding that, of how he's so disconnected from exactly what occurred, the event that occurs here. I'm curious about his character's overall mindset and what he's processing to create this alternate kind of reality he's living in for a few days after this.
I think we are going to get into that when we get to the ending reveal. But I think it's really important, guys, to acknowledge that Gordon does this horrible thing literally right away. He has not spent any time in the asylum besides going and touring it to get the job. It's not like he's been there for a week and then it slowly builds and he does this. He does this horrible thing right away. So keep that in mind when we talk about how you can interpret the ending and what you're talking about as well, as how could he put that at the back of his mind and kind of move forward. Although you do see, and characters are acknowledging that he is a different person. He's not acting the same.
Right.
Yeah, it's Monday now, and yeah, the crew is there. I'm kind of, you know, just on a personal level, I'm like, this is a lot to try to do for 4 guys. Talk about overselling your ability. There is no way 4 guys are going to get this done in a week. Like, no way. But none of them want to acknowledge it. Also, most of them spend most of the time sitting around talking, right? We get introduced right away to 2 other characters that are going to join us through this little adventure. Hank, played by a rough-looking Josh Lucas, who would go on later to star opposite Reese Witherspoon in Sweet Home Alabama. And then we get Jeff, played by Brendan Sexton III, who we find out is Gordon's nephew. There is a kind of a story that's threaded through that doesn't really lead anywhere except like hostility that does sort of come into play. But we find out that Hank is now sleeping with Phil's ex-girlfriend, and it's a source of tension for him. Phil does not like Hank at all. Like at all. There is tension right away.
I really appreciate the character dynamics at play here because, again, these are not your average everyday like leads. This feels very much in a way almost like the Thing setup, like rough-looking men just coming to do a job, thrown into a really weird situation. So I really do appreciate that these issues that exist between them. Like it feels like the kind of white trash issues I would expect from people working with asbestos. Like no offense to anyone working with asbestos, but it sounds like a rough job. And it sounds like it takes a rough fella to go in and tear apart a building that looks like this. And you know what? I'm not shocked that they have this issue. It feels real to me. It feels believable to me. A rough-looking Josh Lucas, right? That's his name? Rough-looking Josh Lucas is a hot fucking looking Josh Lucas to me. I'll take him any way I can get him. Him in the Poseidon Adventure with Fergie. Remember that?
Oh my God.
We're covering that one. Fucking being a horror podcast. We're covering the Poseidon Adventure 2000 whatever 10 remake. But I think he's great in a cocky, like just like shit-eating grin kind of role, swarmy character. This is a great role for him. Everyone in this film is perfectly cast. Like truthfully, like there is no weak link, and there's nobody who's underutilized. And even though this tension isn't fully explained, the bantering between these men feeling very real in how they're approaching this dialogue, how he's like kind of jabbing at Phil. You can tell he's trying to be a piece of shit. And I believe it. I would buy that amongst these kinds of men, you know?
Yeah, I also like just the innocent naivety of the Jeff character,
Mhm.
And I forgot about Mike. We can't forget about Mike. I said at the start of this podcast it was 4 men. It's 5. How did I forget about Mike? I think you forget about Mike because he is of the 5 characters, he's probably the most mellow. Although his actions throughout the film really drive a specific aspect of the plot, but we find out that Mike is super smart, super contemplative. In fact, he was studying to be a lawyer, but dropped out of law school. And I do like his little interactions with the other characters. He's more of an observer. You know, he's observing everything that goes on. And we get a little banter also between Hank and Jeff, where Hank is teasing Jeff about the asbestos. Like, this stuff is going to kill you. You can't play your radio too loud because it's going to loosen up the asbestos and it's going to get in your lung. And they're just all kind of having these fun little shenanigans poking at each other. They're outside on break. They take a lot of fucking breaks too for needing to get this done in a week. This is when Phil reveals to Hank that if they can get this done in a week, there's going to be a $10,000 bonus for each of them. And of course, Hank's initial response is, there's no way. There was no way. This is like a 2-week job. And Phil's like, well, I could put you on a plane and fly your ass out of here if you don't want to do it. There is a security guard that shows up. It's the same security guard from the beginning to reiterate that, like, you know, you guys have a lot of work ahead of you. And it isn't hard to believe that at one point, 2,500 patients lived here. And Jeff is like, well, why did it get closed down? And the security guard responds, well, budget cuts. They called it deinstitutionalization. And this is when out of nowhere, he tells the story of a girl named Patricia Willard. He says it wasn't just the budget cuts. It was Patricia Willard who underwent repressed memory therapy at the hospital. And basically what that is it's supposedly a type of hypnosis or therapy that can make you remember things that you put at the back of your mind, and like being raped and incest. And remember, Roger, the whole satanic panic thing in the 80s? There was like that preschool in California, what was the MacArthur preschool, and all it was a huge mess.
Yeah.
The West Memphis 3 case kind of played into satanic panic. But he tells the story of Patricia Willard, who went under this therapy and basically remembered that she was raped by her father. Not only raped, but taken out into the woods, gang raped by her father, her grandfather, while they were wearing robes, and had to watch her mother cut the heart out of a fetus. And because of this multiple rape, she got pregnant numerous times and had to have abortions. And come to find out, she sued her parents. The parents found a medical record that stated that she was a virgin. So there's no way this story was true. They sued the hospital, hence leading to it closing down. A long story, an intriguing story, but doesn't really have anything to do with the plot.
It doesn't really have anything to do with the plot, but I think one thing that I think is so interesting about this movie is, like, it doesn't give you many breadcrumbs, but the ones that it does give you, like, you hold on to. Like, there's little things here, specifically in the story, they talk about the fetus, or not the fetus, but like the newborn being sacrificed, having its heart cut out and eaten. And like, nothing happens later in the movie involving a baby. And I'm not saying it really is connected, but the story is crafted in such a way that you think it should be. And so your mind keeps coming back to it. I think this movie is genius because technically, truthfully, I'm sure many people step away from this film and perceive it in a way in which sessions 1 through 9 technically have no impact on what is happening here. There are a lot of people, I'm sure, who, over at the end of the day, think, okay, these tapes are just like a plot device and a distractionary tool, but really, like, the core of what's going on here is with Gordon and what is happening in his life, and that would be happening regardless of the tapes. But I'm sure there's other people who, because of these little breadcrumbs, think, no, there's something more here that is at play, and that's what we have to find out. I'm sure these two camps exist, yeah?
They do. Yeah, I mean, yes. There are people, you are 100% right. There's 2 interpretations of this film. Of course, under each of those interpretations, there's a lot of subtext and other conversations you can have. But, you know, yeah, the most notable criticism I've seen about this film is, yes, it uses a plot device that, albeit is creepy, but literally has nothing to do with the actual story being told. I mean, the film's title, Session 9, is related to these tapes, but in reality, it more hints at the fact that when Mike finally listens to session 9, that's when everything is revealed, but it's not through really the tapes, even though a big revelation is made in the session 9 tape. I will say, yeah, the tapes are creepy. I enjoy listening to them. I don't think the film would be the same without them, if that makes sense, even though they're not really an important part of the film. I think the film would not be as effective as if you didn't have them. But yeah, we find out that Mike is super intelligent. He knows a lot of the history because his dad is also Attorney General of the state of Massachusetts. I could have done without that line because I don't know. I guess personally, I don't buy that if your dad was attorney general of the state you live in, that you were going to be working kind of a dead end job at an asbestos removal plant. But okay, we'll go with it. We'll go with it.
I think that's part of the irony of his character, though. I like the character of Mike because he seems like a really intelligent guy who's also just not motivated enough to push it further. And so he's doing this like kind of dead end job, probably to disconnect from all of that because he has so much potential. But really, like, he can't help but be smarter than everyone around him. And his curiosity is what gets him to start, pursuing listening to these tapes. Because Mike is I don't say the narrator, but anything to do with Mary moving forward is solely attached to him. That is his storyline, and it does become a major through story. But I think I like that his character is so interested in the hospital and knows so many things. I do think that it is also really worth noting this moment of Gordon sitting looking at his cell phone, and the title "Home" is on it, and you can see him looking at the phone, and it's so tiny and it's so subtle. But upon coming to revisit the film and watch it a second time, I was like, that's noteworthy. This little beat as Mike is talking about all the horrible things that this family did when raping this girl, Mary. You have this beat where it cuts to Gordon looking at his phone, and it looks like he's like wanting to call home. Yeah. But he's not doing it. And I thought that was just a really like a specific little thing, a little detail that I really liked there.
After this whole thing, Phil and Gordon are walking, and we see that Gordon has a very noticeable limp that even Phil mentions. And Gordon's like, "Oh, it's just I'm sore. I must have slept wrong or something." He's like, "Yeah, I called you to go out for a beer with us on Saturday to celebrate, but you did not answer your phone." And he's like, "Yeah, I went to bed early." And now we get like Phil, no nonsense guy. You want to like him because these are all like blue collar guys, but we have to acknowledge what a conniving piece of shit Phil is. And this is when we get the first shade of him being conniving, because he basically tells Gordon, "I have strong concerns that we are going to lose our bonus because of Hank. Hank is worthless. I can call up my friend Craig from Yankees asbestos removal. He'll come in right away. He cares. We can get the job done. Hank is going to tank this for us." Gordon shuts him down, not even acknowledging it. He's like, "Dude, this is Hank you're talking about. I don't want to hear another word about it."
Yeah, it's an interesting connection with those two characters. That little issue between the two of them, it really is Phil's driving force with Hank. I like that because everything that's negative about him is kind of targeting Hank, and it does make him seem really unlikable and kind of not trustworthy, which is important here.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that is super important because the film does try to misdirect you at the very end. But which is kind of clever because Phil has been painted out to be untrustworthy so far. Because let's acknowledge, he just doesn't backstab Phil. He backstabs Gordon here later on in the film, which is surprising, and it makes you dislike the character even more and realize that he really is just out for himself. So you get some shenanigans going on. Hank's walking through the tunnels. He sees that Satan rules is spray painted, so he covers that up. You got Mike and Jeff going on that floor stripper machine, having fun. Jeff's riding it, when all of a sudden the power goes out and they realize that the breaker must have tripped, and Mike tells Jeff to go down to the basement and check the breaker, and Jeff says, "I can't do that." "Why not?" He's like, "Because I have nyctophobia, fear of the dark," which he does. Like, he freaks out later in the movie. So Mike goes down there, and this is important. This is a pivotal moment in the plot. Mike goes down there, he plugs everything back in, he gets it working. A bright light comes on in an adjoining room that says employees only. So he goes to investigate. And this is a room that is filled with like file cabinets and all kinds of stuff. A light flickers on and off and catches his attention. And when he looks up, he sees a box that says evidence. Now they left a lot of shit in this hospital, like, but hey, he gets the tapes down, starts to cut them open, and as he's cutting the box open, we see like Gordon cuts his finger, Phil inhale something as he, so it's kind of hinting that the opening this box is unleashing something.
It is. I love that. They're really toying with you. None of these things are actual things that are like abnormal considering the situation where they are. But the way it's edited, even like you said, the lights coming on, it's done in a way that it seems that has to be supernatural. The light flickering at that exact time, oh, that has to be intentional. But no, these are all reasonable things that would naturally draw his attention in that direction. And the way to cut him cutting that box open, like it feels like all of these things happening is it's setting something off, it's triggering something, and that is definitely the idea they're trying to plant here. They're definitely trying to associate something with the tapes. It's your choice whether or not you think it is.
Yes, they are not going to give you a solid answer. It really is up to the viewer if you want to believe that there is something supernatural happening in this film. There are little clues, but there's no solid answer. The day's over. Everyone goes home for the night, except Mike, who stays so that he can begin listening to these tapes from a patient named Mary Hobbs. And he listens to session 1. And we hear her psychiatrist, her doctor, asking her what happened on Christmas in Lowell 20 some years ago. And she's like, I don't remember. I can't remember. And then we get that fucking voice, Roger. Princess. Mary got a China doll from mommy. But they can't find it. And she wants to know where the China doll. It's basically he's looking at the file, and Mary has 3 personalities: Princess, Billy, and Simon. And right now, Princess wants to know where her doll is. And the doctor's like, I don't know where your doll is. You need to tell me what happened all those years ago at Christmas time. Mary got a pretty China doll. Peter got a big old knife, she says. And then Mommy and Daddy went upstairs and we played. And they played hide and go seek. And all of this is intercutting with the other guys just doing their normal things. Like you see Jeff taking a shower. You see Phil sitting in a bar. As this voiceover, this doctor's trying to get out of Princess, this voice, what happened? And can I talk to Billy? And what did Billy tell you about that night? Well, Billy only tells me nice things like I'm pretty. And then the recurring image of Gordon sitting in his truck across the street from his house. This time he looks down at his pant leg and it's wet, and he touches it and then just like screams in pain. And then it hard cuts to Tuesday. First of all, what do you think about these tapes, Roger?
I think the tapes are like a genius tool for a filmmaker who wants to, like I've said before, toy with the audience. And I think that it's used in such a way, like it's really kind of awe-inspiring, the fact that they don't make it ever too obvious what they're doing with it. It's really something that I think is like a masterclass in toying with our emotions. And so I think the thing that's really impressive me with the tapes is there's a lot of really subtle little choices that they made, and the things that are being shared that do parallel tonally with what's developing within the character of Gordon. But like it never bleeds over so much that it feels like, oh my God, this is absolutely 100% the same exact thing that's happening to him. He's going through his own mental break, and you're listening to tapes from a mental hospital. Similar themes that are connecting. But there are a few things that feel really intentional. And like, you know, the character of Mary, who very much seems to provide the voices for Princess, and Billy, who has a slight southern drawl and sounds like a little gay boy. That's the same actress providing that voice. I'm thoroughly convinced. You know, it's obviously she's putting on a voice. These are alternate personalities. The other personality, Simon, doesn't come into play until later. We've already heard his voice, technically. It is the same voice that we heard Gordon hear at the start of the film. That's worth noting. Does not sound to me that it is the same actress. Now, clearly that's intentional. whatever they did to distort that voice or give it that kind of warble. Like, there was definitely something about that voice that seems significantly different from anything else we're hearing coming from Mary. And that is like one of the things. There's a few little things that make me want to lean a little paranormal here. That is one of the things I'm going to toss out. Simon, the entity that is Simon, whatever he is and what he represents, the fact that Gordon heard him already and he comes back into play on these recordings, that was an intentional choice, and I want to know why the directors did that. Why did Gordon hear that same specific voice, you know?
Yeah. Gordon hears it again now. I mean, he hears it again in this next scene. It's Tuesday, and the guys are working, and we see that Gordon is like transfixed, staring out the window at the entrance of the cemetery, because we have to acknowledge there is a cemetery on this premise as well. And like there's like a gazebo type entrance to the cemetery that has crosses on it. And as he's staring at the gazebo, that we hear we hear the voice say, "You can hear me." And it's a very sinister voice. It definitely is very sinister. He gets snapped out of it by like Mike and Jeff announcing that the generator is up and running. There is this moment that I think is like really cool if you caught it, where Mike tells Jeff, he says, "Put your mask on, princess." And Jeff says, "I'm not your fucking princess." And then Mike's response is, What? Like he's confused. Like he doesn't even know that he called Jeff princess. It's a really subtle moment, but I fucking love it.
Well, I mean, that really is the strong suit in with this film in general, is subtlety. I would rather a film make subtle and precise choices than make bold, over-the-top ones that take away the credibility of the overall film story they're trying to tell. You know, like, at the end of the day, I appreciate this film more because of its subtleties than I have issue with them. So I really think that these little moments that aren't explained are subtle enough that I think they enhance the moment. And there's a few little disjointed moments, like we're saying, you keep hearing this voice coming into play with Gordon, and it's such a specific choice to have this almost be a kind of like, not like a narrator for what he's going through, but a lot of times this voice will come in the midst of his most distracted moments and provide commentary, and it just seems very intentional. And the thing that makes me feel like there is a kiss of paranormal is everything Mike is listening to on these tapes, he's not sharing with anybody. Gordon doesn't have any way to be connected with this voice. If he is hearing the same voice from those tapes, that seems to be a malevolent force. How would he even know about it? You know, how would he at all be aware of it? These are all things that Mike is specifically himself experiencing and not sharing with the men. So it feels like there's something else at play here that isn't being explained, but it is intentional that it's there.
Well, we cut to Hank, who is in the tunnels. Basically, he finds a trail of silver coins. Like literally, there's a trail of silver coins. One of them's from 1884, then from 1883. Follows it and sees that there is like coins like literally falling out of this crack in the wall. So he goes and he removes the brick from it, and a literal fountain of coins and jewels and rings and everything else, eyeballs, glass eyes, flow out of this wall. And he knows he's like, oh my fucking God, he hit the jackpot. We also have to remember that Hank is a gambler. Like he's a big time gambler. That's mentioned a couple times in the film. So having all of these coins and shit pull out, he's just seeing jackpot. And Phil radios him to tell him to come back upstairs because it's lunchtime. And we see the camera kind of do this weird pullback and go up to reveal that he is literally pulling coins and all these jewels from what is the crematorium dispensary, like where all of the shit after a body was cremated fell, and it just happened to now be underground and it's coming out, and he's getting shit that was from a crematorium. How disturbing.
Another genius plot tool, though. Like, you see that, and you see all those coins and everything embedded in the walls for where people were basically burned in there, you know, and these are all like, I'm assuming the remnants of what had been in their possessions, whatever that may be. These are all the things that got embedded in the brick. Like, that's cursed shit. That's bad juju.
Yeah.
You're taking that shit, you know, so of course, again, me as the viewer, I'm like, oh my God, the ghosts, the spirits are fucking pissed. Like, I know why they're mad now. This guy's stealing all their shit. So whether or not this has any impact on the story as well, open interpretation. But it's so genius, and this feels, of course, it would in the right film. This would be what would set something off like this, you know.
It's lunchtime. All the guys are eating except Mike. Mike is back listening to session 5 now. And Mary is basically telling the psychiatrist, I can't talk anymore. I'm too tired. The doctor announces that it appears she's entering a dissociative state. She's putting her fingers in her mouth. And then she switches to a different personality. Billy. I love this little Southern gay boy. Hello, Doc. And the doc asks Billy where Princess lives. She lives in the tub because she's always talking. And then he says, where do you live, Billy? I live in the eyes because I see everything. Where Simon live, Billy? We don't get an answer right away.
Ominous. Fucking ominous.
Phil radios Mike and's like, you got to come join lunch. Like you have to be with us. We have to do this as a team. So he goes to join lunch. Jeff had found this like logbook to show that like what people got committed for, and like 17 people were committed for disappointed expectations. I feel like a lot of people that of today would probably be committed for disappointed expectations, or also mortified pride. Roger, that was another one people got. What the fuck? 3 people were admitted because of mortified pride.
I want to know more about these things. You needed to do more sleuthing, Troy, to go in and tell me what these things mean, because I don't even know what would that consist of.
I don't know. Mortified pride. I don't know. Getting blocked on on Grindr after saying hi to somebody and they just block you. Is that mortified pride? Oh I don't know.
And then you stalk that person. You're like, I'm so proud in myself that I'm mortified you won't fuck me on Grindr. Yeah, I know a few people who've done that to me. I've caused some mortified pride in my time.
Well, they probably spent time at Danvers.
Yeah, probably.
So, yeah, Jeff's like, I wonder what you got to do to get admitted today. And Hank says, you got to kill somebody. And Mike's like, nope, that ain't going to work. A sanity defense very rarely works. And Hank teases him. He's like, God damn, you're smart. Why'd you drop out of law school? And Jeff laughs at him and is like, yeah, why'd you drop out of law school? What are you, a lobotomy case? And like drools, spits up his soda. This is when Mike grabs him and has a chopstick and puts the chopstick to Jeff's eyeball and basically starts to describe what they did with the lobotomy, which was they jabbed the pick into the eyeball, right into the soft tissue of the frontal lobe, and pull it up and down to poke the, what is it? What were these glands? We heard them in the relic.
Oh my God, the relic. Hypothalamus.
Hypothalamus. We got to hear that word again. Roger, you should have seen me light up when he said hypothalamus. I'm like, oh,
welcome back, hypothalamus.
Hypothalamus.
I mean, I've said that word more than I've said my own mother's name. Hypothalamus, Jesus Christ, is haunting me. I wake up in the middle of the night screaming hypothalamus after that fucking relic review. Listeners, go back, check out that relic review. You'll never not know that word ever again. But yeah, you know what? Another really fucking cool moment, Troy, is because this moment, it's very specific what he does. He explains a lobotomy, and there, very specifically, you see a shot of Gordon's eyes looking up. You see Gordon listening. You see him processing. But this moment is explained kind of through like a little joke when Mike's kind of fucking around with what's his name? Is it Jeff?
Jeff, yeah.
Jeff, yeah, he's fucking around with Jeff. After Jeff makes fun of him, he grabs him, he walks him through it because he's so smart. He knows the ins and outs of what they would do with this, and that's all it is. And it's kind of tossed off. And it just seems like such a little toss-away fun moment that they're sharing, but it is very specific in the fact that they cut back to Gordon, and that's so important because this is something that he really would have to register considering what he does moving forward.
He does register it very well, might we add. We also learned from Mike that the only, the treatment for it, you got a black eye, and then the treatment for it was sunglasses. That's it. So they put some sunglasses on you, and you are basically lobotomized, which sounds fucking horrible. We get this whole moment between Hank and Jeff, where it is revealed that, yes, Hank's aspirations are to be a whale. because he asks Jeff if he knows what a whale is. And basically, a whale is a big time gambler. So he has aspirations, and he tells Jeff, please have an exit plan because this job will take its toll on you, you know. And he proceeds to tell him, like, just like this little piece of asbestos can get in your lung, and before you know it, it's like a pearl. The tissue grows around it, and it just becomes a poison in your body. He's like, everyone has an exit plan. He's like, Phil, you don't think Phil has an exit plan? You don't think that Mike has an exit plan? He's going to go back to college. The only one that really doesn't have an exit plan is Gordon. And he proceeds to tell Jeff that Gordon would have lost the company if they did not get the job. And he makes the point to say that Gordon is usually like the most cool person under pressure. But in the last few months, and again, I want to highlight that the last few months, he has noticed a change in Gordon and some cracks in Gordon.
One thing we haven't even really touched on, and this is something that's really just subtle and smart in how they approach a story. The reason why these men are here for asbestos, asbestos is something, and like they keep mentioning asbestos, they keep bringing it up. And while asbestos can't cause like insanity, asbestos does have like, as people are exposed to it, can have like effects on people, and it can cause people to like feel distress. It can cause people to have anxiety, and it's something like they're constantly exposing themselves. These men are constantly not wearing masks. So there's even part of me as a viewer that's like, is the asbestos getting to them? Like the whole film, I'm like, is it the asbestos that's causing them to lose their minds? I'm not saying that's like 100% how that would work, but it's always an element. They keep bringing up the asbestos, so you naturally are kind of like, is that kind of part of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very intentional that these are asbestos removal crews because asbestos, as we do know, is very, very, very dangerous, and an exposure to it over long periods of time can really have hazardous effects on your mind, your body, your lungs. It can cause your body to shut down, and it can kind of similar fashion to what's happening to Gordon psychologically, right? Is kind of, I think, the parallel with the asbestos, the whole asbestos thing. We cut to Gordon after Hank tells Jeff the whole story about Gordon and how he's noticed a change. Gordon is on the phone now, talking to his wife, basically asking her for forgiveness, telling her they need to talk, and then she apparently hangs up on him. This is important. It's also important because out the window, he sees Phil talking to two, best described, shady looking characters. We don't know what's being said. The two guys walk away shadily, and we're like, okay, those guys look like they're up to no good. All right. Important. That evening, Hank drives back to the hospital. It's pitch black. I feel like a lot of things Hank is doing wrong here. He knows he's not supposed to be on the property, after dark. That was explained as a rule at the beginning of the film. They're not supposed to go on the property outside of work time. He's there. This place is creepy as fuck. It's pitch black. He does have a flashlight, but Roger, he is just like parading around through this property. He's wearing headphones, playing music, which I think would not be a good idea because you want to be able to hear your surroundings, right? He's just oblivious, but he's there to retrieve all of the coins, and he does. He puts them in a case, and off he goes. And he's walking down these dark hallways. You got to mention, what is one thing he pulls out of the rubble? A pristine lobotomy pick that he takes with him. As he's leaving, like, he comes across a fresh jar of peanut butter, of Jif peanut butter, Roger, just sitting in the hallway. I don't know, either we're supposed to believe that a squatter was in there eating it, or is it Gordon in there eating it? Who knows? But there's a jar of Jif peanut butter in there, and as he picks it up, he hears a noise behind him, and he immediately jolts, flashes the flashlight at the end of the hallway. And again, one of the probably the creepiest parts of the film for me is when you see that figure just kind of emerge from the shadows at the end of the hallway. It's so creepy, and it's just like it's a thing of nightmares. Thinking you're alone, and yeah.
So brief and so specific, like it just he moves back and forth, and the light turns, and as he turns, you just get this really brief moment of this figure stepping out. And the thing that like kind of lingers with me about this moment is when this is all said and done, this whole sequence is he's running through the building, and you consider the layout and the direction he's moving in. There's a lot of things to consider here. You still don't know exactly who that was. And the peanut butter is such a specific little device to have planted there to question things because, like, is it a squatter? They brought it up multiple times. You're kind of waiting for that interaction. Is it Gordon? Is it something else? I think I know what it is, but overall, like, a lot of things are not answered here. This movie has so many unanswered questions, and this whole encounter that he has in this basement is something that's never really totally addressed. But this sequence, like this, if there's one moment that really got me to react, it was this moment. I knew it was fucking coming. I was rolled up in a ball in a chair. I was terrified. My dogs were panicking, and this fucking happened, and I fucking jumped. My dog started barking. I had to pause it. I had to pause the TV. I thought I shat myself. I didn't, thank God. But like, I knew something was coming like this, and I'm so happy this movie like does have one of those moments. There's a couple of them. This I would say is the standout scare though in this film for me.
Yeah, no, it's super creepy. Again, the thing of nightmares, like being in a place that you think is abandoned and secluded and there's seeing somebody else in there with you. I do know that there's a whole subplot of the movie that was cut out of it involving a homeless woman that lived in the building that the guys encountered a couple of times. They cut it out because at the first couple of test screenings, the audience was super confused, thinking that it was Mary Hobbs, but it was not. So director Brad Anderson made the choice just to cut all of the scenes with her in it. And I'm wondering if maybe some of the leftover things, maybe the peanut butter would have been explained by her. Maybe she walked around with a fucking jar of peanut butter the whole time. I don't know, but I do know that that exists, that there is a deleted footage of a homeless woman that they encountered that lives in the building. But yeah, that seeing that figure emerge, terrifying. He takes off running. He's wearing the headphones the whole time, so you hear the music in his headphones jarbling as he's running. He runs into that, a dead end, and all those fucking birds fly out and scare him. And he goes backtracks, turns around the other corner, and something is there, right there, startles him. Hard cut. We don't know what it is because we hard cut to the next day, Wednesday.
Let's talk real quick about how they handle their hard cuts. We have lavished this film with praise.
It's jarring. It really is jarring. I would say my biggest gripe about the film are the hard cuts.
The hard cuts in the sense that, like, overall, what is revealed, while really well executed at the end of the film, there's a great sequence of revelations that happen that are really shocking, and it probably wouldn't have hit as hard, but I think it would have been worth still including this regardless. I really think that they could have kept up the air of mystery and, like, kept the viewers guessing exactly what's happening and still giving us a bit more than a fucking harsh jump cut. Like, every time there's a jump cut like this, like, there is plenty of room that they could have let the shot linger, let the audio kind of step in and hear the audio of what's happening, and maybe cut to some creative angles. You've got this great fucking environment. I'm sure there's some graffiti you could have filmed or something just to make the moments feel a little more complete and thus satisfying, because these harsh jump cuts are so abrupt. After that amazing sequence, that whole pursuit sequence, you're going to just cut it off like that. It was jarring. It pulled me out of the moment, and I didn't totally love that. So that is one of my gripes. I don't love that is one creative choice that they made with this movie.
This one, and then there's another one later in the film that I think is really took me out of it. I'm like, ah.
Oh yeah. Big time.
Yeah. So it's Wednesday. The remaining guys are at work, but there's no Hank, obviously. They're trying to get a hold of him. Phil volunteers to call Amy because he has her number. Of course he would. He's her ex. Now he does something that, again, this character is super conniving. He calls Amy, quote unquote, and when he gets her on the phone, he basically he's like, what? He did what? Are you sure? Like, what? We know this can't be true. What he ends up revealing is that Amy told him that basically Hank got home last night, packed his bags, and headed to Miami to go to casino school. And Phil, Roger, is acting so high and mighty. He's like, see, guys, I told you what a fucking piece of shit he was. Now you better call Craig. Gordy recognizes that something isn't right. He's like, this just isn't right. Then he confronts Phil about who were those guys you were talking to yesterday. Phil's like, I don't know who you're talking about. He's like, yeah, I saw you talking to two guys, and they get like he gets right in Phil's face. He is less than an inch from Phil's face. He's like, are you accusing me of something? Are you questioning my performance? And Gordon says, should I be? Phil turns around to tell Mike to call Craig when fucking Gordon grabs him and screams like aggressively, don't you ever fucking turn your back on me. Now, so far, this man has been mild mannered. Even Hank acknowledges how even keel of a character Gordon is. This is explosive. Like everyone is just like their mouths are agape. They can't believe it. And all Phil can be like, are you going to hit me? And there's a stare down until finally Gordy just like shoves him away and takes off running.
The choice of phrasing, are you going to hit me, is very specific, and it really strikes a chord with Gordon. Like, part of the reason I think he runs off is when he hears this, is it like it triggers something, because oh boy, is that relevant. Are you going to have an explosive act of violence? Like, clearly he's at a point where he's erupting, and this is not the first time, as we come to find out. So it really, really hits a nerve. And this is the first time, I think, where a lot of the characters, everyone's noticed that Gordon is exhausted, but I think everyone's starting to realize that Gordon is unstable. And so this becomes a main area of focus for everybody. I think that, like, this whole bit coming up here of, Gordon storms outside and he goes to the cemetery. He's sitting on a fallen tree, and like you notice there's this moment of the tombstone that's revealed. It's tombstone number 444, and meanwhile Mike is back in that study where he found the tapes, and he's going through the files. He finds the file deceased number 444, Mary Hobbs. Mm-hmm. Like, this is this other little detail that, like, they think to place this here, very much trying to grab your attention and get you thinking, get your wheels turning. Is it just the irony of it all, or is there actually something at play? Like, it's so smart.
Yeah, you also get a moment where Phil tells Mike that basically this used to be a great job until Emma, who is Gordon's baby, was born. He's basically telling Mike that Gordon becoming a father ruined everything. Gordon never wanted to be a father. It was Wendy's idea, and ever since he's become a father, it's screwing up his mind and it's screwing up his work. While Gordon is out in the cemetery standing above that 444 tombstone, he calls Wendy again and he asks her if they can talk and can she forgive him. Until Jeff comes in and interrupts him and basically, wants to calm him down. So thanks him for giving him a job, tells him they're doing a great job. He asks about his Aunt Wendy, how's she doing? And Gord's only response is, she's tired. Now, Mike is downstairs listening to more of the tapes. Mary is crying on the tape, saying she misses her family because they don't come and visit. The doctor asks how she got the scars on her chest, and she says she fell off her bike. And it's just a conversation. Mary, who's Princess? Who's Billy? Who's Simon? I don't know who they are. And suddenly you hear Billy, the little gay boy Billy, get on. He's like, Mary's asleep, sir. Billy, why won't you tell me what happened in Lowell? And Billy's response is, you know what happened. Maybe Simon will tell me. I mean, there's a story that's being revealed here through these characters. And it seems like so far, all of the different characters are kind of scared of this Simon character, right? They don't want to wake him up. They don't want to know. They don't want the doctor to hear from Simon. They want to keep Simon at bay.
This is the moment that leads kind of like to that like weird dream sequence. Like there is this moment where Gordon has like also almost like a hallucination of him in the hazmat suit, like covered in blood. And like you do get some kind of like funky, distorted visuals. This movie doesn't do a lot of that. So this was a little bit like, whoa, this is kind of jarring, because some of these visuals are really like, violent, so it's becoming very clear that there is something wrong with Gordon. They're not trying to paint that any other way. Even down to like when Jeff comes and talks to him and he asks the question about how the aunt is, his response, like he's really like strained and like very like just kind of overwhelmed, and you see it all over him. So you are very clearly seeing that this man is spiraling. It's almost like a Jack Torrance kind of thing in a way.
Yeah, I definitely get the parallels there. I was thinking the same thing. This is almost a, and that's I think the supernatural elements in The Shining are much more blatantly there. This one again, it's really leaving the viewer to decide if any supernatural shit's going on at all. I want to say, like I mentioned at the very beginning, like right away, you get to know how, just from the actors' interactions, how close Phil and Gordon are. And I want to reiterate that in this next scene because they just had this huge fight. Like, I mean, it almost came to blows, but now they're back in the tent together and they seem fine with each other. And in fact, Gordon asks Phil what the stupidest thing he's ever done in his life is. And Phil jokes, he's like, was besides work for you? He's like, actually, it was introducing Hank to Amy. And as he's getting ready to tell this story, Gordon just interrupts and says, I hit Wendy. I hit my wife. And he proceeds to tell Jeff that he got home Friday, after they found out that they got the job. He had champagne and flowers. He went into the kitchen. She was cooking. I had boiling water, making pasta on the stove. And he went up behind her and went in to give her a kiss and kind of startled her when she turned around. She spilled the pot of boiling water on his leg and he reacted by hitting her. And he says he's been staying in a motel ever since. He's been trying to call to apologize and she won't answer. And then he's like, you know what? You should probably give Craig a call. We need to get this job done. And please don't tell the other guys. He tells them specifically, please don't tell the other guys. And Phil's like, oh, no, I would never do that. And then Phil says, by the way, those guys you saw me talking to yesterday, they were like graffiti artists. And I told them they better not show their faces around here.
Another thing that's not really explored further, I guess that you're supposed to accept that's what it was. They didn't. I mean, I guess they look like graffiti artists. They look rough.
They did. I'm wondering if that's true. I guess it's not explored. But this is a big revelation. We find out what happened to Wendy that night and why we keep hearing some audio that is being threaded throughout the film, like water spilling, her screaming, her talking about. We keep hearing that, and now it's revealed that he hit his wife. He did this again the first night before they even got the job, before they even started the job. He had this encounter with her.
Well, and you see the burn here coming up in this moment following too, and like, I mean, when you hear the story of what happened here, like, if the woman did nothing wrong. She turned at the wrong time. She dumped fucking hot pasta water on him. She burned the fuck out of him, and he lost fucking control and reacted violently, more violently than we anticipated. That's what happened. Literally, he's exhausted. He's coming home. He's on his last leg. And he comes through the door and she dumps hot water on him on accident. Of course, he's going to be angry, but he fucking erupts. And that's really what is happening here. And it makes sense why he's so desperate. You see this burn. It is fucking wild. It is huge. That makes sense. He's pouring, like, rubbing alcohol on it and screaming, drooling in pain. Oh, my God. This is the moment here where that whole, I think this is where that weird hazmat sequence happens that I mentioned earlier. He kind of wakes up. He's sleeping in front of the fucking building.
We find out he's not staying in a motel. He's been sleeping in his van in front of the building, which is important because we have to acknowledge now that he's been at the location the entire time, sleeping in his van. So, hint, he would know who shows up at what time and when, right? That should clue you in on something. But yeah, he wakes up in the van. He's having this dream, and we hear the water spilling. We hear a voice for the first time say, "Do it, Gordon." And then we hear screaming, and then he jolts awake. Yeah, and he lifts that pant leg up, and it's this whole upper leg is just, I mean, these have to be third-degree burns.
Oh yeah, it's like blistered and bubbling, and he pours like this like dark liquid on it. It looks so painful. He is fucking selling it. But I mean, oh, this poor guy. Like, I mean, I want to say poor guy. He did something truly horrible. But like, you could tell this man is just fucking like life is hitting him hard. Jeez Louise.
And then there's this kind of moment where that I think is kind of a little heartbreaking in a way, even though he has done some horrible things. It's Thursday now. Phil is there early. He's lighting up a joint. Good for you, Phil. Gordon pulls up and Phil says, I must not be the only one that couldn't sleep. And he recognizes that Gordon, there's something wrong with Gordon. He's like, Gordon, are you okay? And Gordon looks at him and in the most sad way possible just says, I want to go home. And, you can tell Phil is like, oh shit. Oh, I'm sorry, man. I guess I'm just gonna go inside. It's just a sombering, like this poor man. Not really, because he's did something terrible, but
The transition into this moment, I think it's something interesting worth noting that like there is this beat of where you see that chair again, that like wheelchair, which even that is like the main promotional visual, and really that wheelchair doesn't really fucking
it
do
doesn't.
shit in
Yeah,
the movie.
it's like, what is that supposed? It's not like Mary was confined to this wheelchair or stuff.
No,
I don't know what the wheelchair. It's creepy. Good for you,
it's
film,
creepy.
for picking a creepy image. It has nothing to do with the film, but hey,
Hey, I mean, it's there, it's in the hospital, but you do start to see like shadows moving around it. Like, and I mean, you can take this, you can interpret it however you want, but there are these lingering shots of the shadows like moving and adjusting around the wheelchair. And I think, like, again, they're trying to hint in whatever way they can that there may be something supernatural, but it's just that's all it is. It's just these like shots where it looks like there's shadows moving in the lighting, and then it's transitioned to the next day. I think it's really smart how they sprinkle those things in there to keep your mind working, to keep your mind thinking that could be the case.
yeah. Well, they have so many problems with this fucking floor stripper because Mike and Jeff are inside using the floor stripper and the power goes out on it again. So of course Mike is going to go down because Jeff is afraid of the dark. Except Phil comes in and tells Mike he needs to talk to him. Makes the boy go down. I need to talk to you. So he pulls Mike aside, and we have to remember, you know, they had this conversation. Gordon told him specifically not to tell the other guys. Now Phil is pulling this backstabbing shit on Gordon because he tells Mike Gordon is a liability. He's gonna fuck up this job for us. And Mike's like, "What are you talking about? This is Gordon's company. He would never do that." Like he's and immediately Phil's like, "Gordon hit his wife. He hit Wendy." And you see that Gordon is actually at the bottom of the stairs listening. How much he hears, I'm assuming he hears all of it. He does come up and confront them. And Mike's like, "Oh no, we were just talking about your nephew and how he's coming along." And Gordon stares at both of them for a minute, and he's like, "How's he coming along?" So I'm assuming, yes, that Gordon heard this whole conversation, and that possibly could be another trigger to lead to what happens. Because at this point forward, a lot of shit's going down. Because
Yeah.
on the way down to fix the breaker, who the fuck does Jeff run into? Fucking Hank. Standing in the stairwell, staring out the window, wearing sunglasses. And when Jeff is like, "What the fuck are you doing here? The guys are pissed. They want your head. Everyone thinks you're in Miami." And all Hank says is, "What are you doing here? What are you doing here?"
This is the moment where I felt like things were definitely starting to take a turn. And I mean that they definitely are for sure, but even more so, like in a way that I was anticipating that like this is again gonna be something fantastical. He's definitely gotta be dead. I love the revelation of what happened here, the revelation of what actually occurred, because it makes sense why he's still alive. I'm curious, I think, in the sense of executing this so precisely when it comes down to who did it. And let's be real. I think we've been alluding to it the whole time. Like, it's fucking Gordon.
Yeah.
Like, Gordon basically, we find out, and it's very heavily implied, but performed a lobotomy on Hank. And Hank's just walking around,
Yeah.
okay, wearing sunglasses. I don't know where he got the sunglasses. I don't know where he's been stored thus far, you know, but it is something that, like, it's a very interesting choice to take this route. It seems almost on the cusp of I don't buy it, I don't believe it. But I think that in Gordon's kind of manic state when he does kind of snap, okay, like I'll roll with it. And if you are going to embrace the paranormal element at all here, I think I buy that a little bit more now that this has occurred with Hank. If there is something paranormal, if there is something involving Mary, there's something greater here. It's tying into the hospital. They're using fucking lobotomy sticks. If they're getting possessed by a demonic force, whatever that may be, that all kind of lives in a universe for me that I can buy it. It was an interesting choice to bring him back in this fashion, but I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I mean, people really were lobotomized, and were able to walk around and function afterwards. So it's a real thing. It's like you have to buy would Gordon be able to pull off a lobotomy with such precision that
Yes.
that Hank wouldn't die. But he obviously there's something wrong with him because all he can say is, "What are you doing here?" And he reaches up and touches the glass, and Jeff sees his hands all bloody. So he's like, "Oh, I got to go get something." So he rushes back to the guys to tell them that he found Hank. And right away Phil's like, "How the fuck did you find he's are you a fucking idiot? He's in Miami. How'd you find Hank?" And we see that Gordon somewhat believes Jeff and is going to go with him. And Phil's like, "How can you believe him? We talked to Amy. Amy said he went to Miami. You all heard it." And Gordon's like, "No, we didn't. We heard you say it on the phone, but I never heard Amy say it. Give me the phone." He asks for the phone. He's like, "I'm gonna call Amy." And Phil's like, "Nope, you don't need to call Amy. I already called her." Gore's like, "Give me the fucking phone." And suddenly, they all go rushing. They rush back to the spot where Jeff saw Hank standing. He's not there, obviously. It leads to this whole argument about calling Amy, "Give me the fucking phone." All of a sudden they hear footsteps upstairs. So they all take off. They split up. This is when the group splits up.
Now knowing what you said about that extra storyline of the homeless woman,
Oh,
I wouldn't have mind them throwing that in there to spice this up a little
some
bit.
broad showing up with peanut butter, eating out of
Oh
a
my
jar of peanut
god.
butter. Would love it.
Oh, one more time. She's got her fucking top down because she's homeless, so she's crazy. Her knockers are hanging out, bobbling in the wind, all hangy drooping like. She's covered in peanut butter. I mean, they could have really created a horrifying visual of this homeless woman. But no, honestly, like, that's intriguing to know that based off, like, the fact that that's a whole subplot that was removed. There's little things here that would make sense to me. Do I mind it that it's so vague? No, but it makes sense to me now that that was something that was omitted from this, because there are little things that I think might have tied up a little bit more evenly, having that extra plot line. Because this is so straightforward for the most part. It's just these guys. There's literally nothing else interfering, pulling them away from their own individual stories. But I do like how they break up here, because the film hits a fever pitch, and it hits like a very like manic note. Everyone's off, running off, doing their own thing. Jeff follows Phil, who goes down into the fucking bowels, the basement of the building. And it really just, you could tell that for this, what is building to this climax, they really were like, we are utilizing this building to maximum effect. We are going to use every fucking inch of this place. We're going to go back into the fucking snake pit. Remember they mentioned that earlier? The snake pit.
Yeah.
We're going to go through this fucking hall of hazmat suits that exist here. Like, all of this is just so fucking creepy. And they really do a great job of making sure that they use it just in a fantastic and expansive way.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of cool because they had very limited areas that they could film in because most of the hospital was too dangerous for them to actually go in and film. So they're working with a very small, limited area of the hospital, but they really make it seem so grand. But yeah, everyone breaks up. Yeah, well, there's a moment where Gordon wants Phil to go with him. He's like, "You come with me," and Phil's response is, "Fuck you." And he takes Jeff. They go running. So Mike and Gordon go upstairs. I do like the fact that like Mike takes this opportunity to pretend that he heard something so that he can go back into the room to continue listening to the tapes. Because while all this is happening, we are finally listening to session 9 of the tape. Yeah, Phil goes in the bowels of the basement, leaving poor Jeff up there because Jeff will not go down because it's dark. Jeff does warn Phil, I did see blood on Hank's hands. So now, session 9. Session 9. Billy is kind of the prominent voice right now, and the doctor's telling Billy, you do know that you, Princess, and Simon all live in Mary. Yes, sir. If Mary's sick and you all live in Mary, then you must be sick too. Yes, sir. You want Mary to get better? You gotta tell me about that night in Lowell. And then we were all playing hide and go seek, and it got real dark. And then he starts screaming, "No, I won't tell. Mary's a good girl. She doesn't need to know." What did Simon do to Peter? And then you get that moment where Jeff is walking down that fucking creepy hall. What are all these hazmat suits just doing there willy nilly? It reminds me of My Bloody Valentine. All those fucking miner suits just hanging. But it's full of weird plastic gloves. And then the generator goes out, which basically causes Mike to stop listening to the tapes because they lose power. And fucking poor Jeff screaming his goddamn head off. This kid, I mean, he is fucking screaming as he's running down this hallway as the lights are going out following him.
Oh, it's so fucking epic. Like it true. And again, it's maintaining this almost like did the generator going out right now, like did it happen on purpose or was this like intentional? Like, is there something fantastical? Like again, it does it in a way where it feels like since everything is building up at the same time, you're like, oh my God, something's about to give. Something supernatural is about to happen. But there's an explanation for everything. One thing I will say before we kind of get into the revelation of what's about to happen here. One thing that I found a bit not forced, but I question is everyone's like, we gotta fucking figure shit out. And Mike's like, I gotta go listen to these tapes. And I'm confused by why that's a priority, but I feel like he perhaps, if anybody here thinks there's something more going on, it's because of him and his knowledge. And so I would have loved to have seen him have a few more moments where he has reason to think that these tapes are actually having an impact. Because other than that, he's just been curious and investigating this woman's story, but he has no other connection up to it other than it's just interesting to him, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I thought about that. Why at this moment, as they're hitting this fever pitch, they think that Hank is still there, that he takes the opportunity to go down and listen to the tapes. I guess it's just like strange fascination. He's become obsessed with the story and he needs to know how it concludes. It's just weird timing. But yeah, I mean, the thing about Mike is his character listens to these tapes, never really reacts to them, doesn't tell anybody about them. He never has a moment where he thinks something in the hospital's happening that's supernatural that might be connected to the tapes. Let's be real. It's a plot ploy. These tapes are a ploy to, like you said, to trick the audience. And I think that this moment, as we hit the fever pitch of the film, the climax, we have to hear session 9. We have to hear what Mary did. So we're just going to let Mike have this moment where he rushes down and plays the tape. But it is really weird timing. But I guess you think about Mike's character as well. He's never really been buddy with the rest of the guys. So it sort of makes sense that he would kind of take this moment to distance himself from them, because if you notice, he's always off reading a book. He's always off doing his own thing. So it kind of makes sense character-wise why he does this. But again, I needed a little bit more with this character and his reactions to these tapes.
I think that this film would have been really wise to have given him something else to explain and expand upon his infatuation with the material. Like, yeah, right now he's just listening to them and they're interesting to him, but he needed to have something, found something, encountered something else. It doesn't even need to be a supernatural encounter, but something else, some other piece to the puzzle. So for him, his instinct here would have just made a little more sense for me. But it is what it is. It's building to a phenomenal climax, so I'm not going to bitch about it because what it's about to get to is actually really, really intense.
Yeah, we go back to Phil, who's deep in that tunnel. He hears music. He hears faint music, so he's following the music. When he comes across fucking Hank, in his underwear on the ground, just kind of rocking back and forth. And he sees Phil approach and he's like, "What are you doing here?" Phil's just staring in amazement. He does radio Gordon, and Gordon is back upstairs, or he's come to that hallway with that goddamn wheelchair, and he's just transfixed by this wheelchair. At the same time, Mike gets the generator going again, which immediately starts the tape playing. So what's interesting is this whole revelation that's on this tape, Mike doesn't even hear it because he's not back in time. He had to go outside to start the generator. We hear it. We hear Simon, that voice, that deep voice. "Hi, doctor." And Simon tells the doctor that Peter was naughty. He scared Mary by creeping up on her in the dark. She fell on her porcelain doll. Remember, Princess wanted to know what happened to that doll earlier. Well, Mary fell on it and broke it when she fell on it, and all of the porcelain pieces sliced her back up. And so Simon, quote unquote, told Mary to get the knife and cut Peter up real bad. And she did. And then Simon told Mary, "Well, once your parents see what you did to Peter, they're going to be mad. So you need to cut them up too." And Simon says, "She did it. She wanted to do it, so she did it." Gordon is back in that one room where all of the pictures were plastered on the wall. Remember earlier we talked about that? We find out it's Mary Hobbs's room. Of course it is. But now on the wall, as he's looking at it, are pictures of Wendy and Emma, his wife and baby, are all on the wall now.
I do feel at this point, when listening to the story that is told, there are some striking comparisons of the fact that what has happened here are both incidents of someone doing something to someone that made them angry enough to kill, like a reactionary moment. With the story of Mary, there's that one photo earlier. You see a picture of her holding her knockers with scars all over her boozles, tweeps and peeps hanging out. She's holding them like a whore, knockers in hand, cuts and bruises all over. I mean, there's scars. She's a grown woman by this point.
My kind of knockers, right? Bruised and scarred.
Yeah, that's like Freddy Krueger titties just hanging out there, and she's holding them. But and so what I'm assuming is that whoever Peter is, Peter shoved her over. The doll broke. It cut up her chest. That triggered a reaction where she killed him. And then this entity that is Simon is saying that then he told her to also kill the parents just because they're going to be so mad that she has to kill them before they do anything about it. And so that is the same thing that has happened here to Gordon. Gordon walks into the house, wife turns around, dumps hot water on him. He becomes irate and he kills everyone in the household, including the fucking dog. Because that dog died, it. And so it really is like these similarities are just so noticeable that to make this tape such a focus, do I feel like that this is something paranormal at play? I'll wait till we finish the review to answer that. But I really think that this story being told at this specific moment is a very intentional choice. And I think that it's disclosing something that it's hard to deny. It's hard to deny they're trying to imply something here. But it's very cool that they leave it open to the viewer.
I mean, the big issue with that, if we're going to say that the tapes are somehow connected to what's going on, I think the big issue that people would have with that is, okay, we could buy that if it was Gordon who was listening to the tapes. But Gordon has not heard any of these tapes at all. As he's in this room looking at the pictures on the wall, Phil does come in to the room, and they have this kind of, they exchange these glances that are, you can tell both of them are holy shit. Jeff comes barreling out of the fucking door of that asylum, screaming bloody murder, ripping his suit off. He gets to the van. You can tell this poor guy he's fucking at his wit's end. He's scared shitless. He's hyperventilating. He's covered in dust. He gets to the van. He does find an Oreo that he eats, and we see a figure. We don't see it. It's like a camera POV come approaching him really, really fast. And Jeff gets out of the van. It's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. The lights went out. I was scared. I came to the van. I hope it's okay that I'm eating this Oreo." And then you get again, it's so awkward, an awkward like rush at the kid, and then hard cut.
I was pretty peeved at this because the setup's so great. Like he comes running out, he gets in the car, he eats those cookies. It takes a moment, like it breathes for a second. And continuity wise, considering everything that's occurring at this point, it makes sense, that they let it breathe, and I like that. But then you have this moment, he stands up and he's talking to the POV, and all of a sudden it just rushes at him. And again, considering what the outcome is, like, could this not have been something where they found a creative way to let that moment linger a little bit more and let it just be more of something? Because I think it could have been really striking and really intense without showing a lot.
I mean, I guess again, in the film's defense, we get to see a little bit more of each of these scenes play out. Not enough, to be honest with you. Like I think it's still super confusing, like what happens to each of these characters. But at least they try to go back and show us like the full, not even the full, but a few seconds more, so we get an idea of what happened. It's Friday now, so they've been there a full week. Gordon is in the van. The radio, he gets called on the radio, and it's Phil's voice on the radio saying, "We found the one responsible." And he gets out, and there's this beautiful aerial shot of him walking into the asylum. We get to see just how fucking big the structure is. He goes inside. At the same time, this fucking new coworker, Craig, comes pulling up 90 miles an hour in his little sports car, getting out. He's sporting another mullet. The mullets in this movie.
Oh my god. If we deserve more time with any character in this film, it's this fucker. Getting out with this cocky ass smirk on his mouth, fucking gut hanging out. He is not an attractive man, but he's sure fucking confident speeding up in that fucking little dinky vehicle.
Because he thinks he's going to make $10,000 for 2 days of work because he's there on Friday. They have to have it done by Monday. He's like, I fucking just hit the jackpot.
Yeah. Note the bloody handprint on the van.
Yes, I do have that. You see he doesn't see it, but it's there. Yeah. So Phil is inside walking through when he comes into that solarium room. And I mean, right there, Hank's body is wrapped in plastic on the floor. And Phil is there. And Phil's like, he was a liability. He brought it on himself. And Gordon's like, you did this. And Phil's like, Gordon, I need you to wake up. I need you to wake up and take a really good look at him. So Gordon bends down, pulls Hank's sunglasses off, and we see that fucking pick is embedded, helm deep into his eyeball. And he's still alive. He's like, what are you doing here? And Gordon's like, you did this. You hired those guys to do this. That's what they were here for. And Phil keeps telling him, wake up, Gordon, I need you to wake up. And suddenly Gordon's like, I am awake. And all of a sudden that Craig comes behind him. He's like, Gordon, what's going on? Gordon looks, no Phil. Phil's not there. Can you imagine? And this poor man, 5 seconds of screen time and just walks into his death. He's barely there.
Oh my God. This poor fucker just busted into the scene, showing up. There's that one shot of him walking by, like there's like a gym. There's like that one big, really open space that I think was like a gym area, and you see the pool of blood. That's the last time that you saw Mike. He was in the middle of that room, and now there's a pool of blood. So you're like, oh fuck, is Mike dead too? No. And then this poor guy just walks in. He's having a good day until he sees his fucking body just laying on the floor. Josh Lucas, dead. Or not dead. He's not even dead. He's got a pick in his eye.
He's not dead yet.
Now, yeah, he's going to be. And then this poor guy, he's like, Gordon, what the fuck's going on? And Gordon just bear hugs this man, drops him to the ground. This guy cannot defend himself. He knocks him out pretty quick. And then this whole bit with the pick, this is really this is a pretty strong visual. If you're going to talk about, moments in a film that really kind of make your skin crawl, when he grabs his fucking pick here and he lifts Josh Lucas.
Yeah, the head.
And the head lifts with it.
That is,
my God,
what a detail. Having the head lift up as he grabs the handle, just slowly pulls it out in his head. And once it's pulled out, his head drops back down to the ground and blood squirts out of his eye. And you can tell that he's dead. But not only that, the fucking, you hear the voice say, do it, Gordon. And he fucking plunges that pick into this poor Craig's eyeball and just digging it in. And the camera's not shying away. You get this poor man kicking, blood squirting. This is a rough looking man, but does he punch him and knock his teeth out, Troy?
You notice how his teeth are
He
missing?
punches him. I don't know if his teeth got knocked out, but he does punch him. But
There's a shot when he starts screaming, it looks like he's missing some teeth. I don't know. This is a man that may have been missing teeth.
he
I
looks
think he maybe
he looks
was.
like he probably was missing teeth from probably too much chewing tobacco, I'm assuming. But I mean,
Yes.
this is brutal. This is brutal. Brutal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the meantime, we're hearing the tape still play. And the doctor, why did you do it, Simon? And he says, because Mary let me. They always do. And now Gordon is stumbling away. He's covered in blood. He has that moment where he's like, just like his hands are shaking. He's trying to grab at his face. It's interesting that, in his mind, it's Phil's voice that is giving him like this whole voiceover telling him, don't tell. If you tell anybody about this, they're going to find out about the others. And now what we see is basically Gordon walking through the motions of what he did. And we see that what really happened was Hank, he was there when Hank got killed. He's the one that killed Hank. We see that when Phil went into the room to confront him, when he was looking at the pictures, he's like, I just found Hank, and he says, you did this to him. We see that Gordon attacks Phil. We see that he's the one that attacks his own nephew with that. We see that he stabs him in the head or something with that fucking carpet knife. And as each time he's doing this, he's walking past their dead bodies. He has pulled their dead bodies inside and they're in different rooms. He killed Mike as Mike was walking back to listen to the tape. He killed him in that big auditorium. And this whole time, Phil's voice is like, Gordy, I need you to wake up. Wake up and remember. And then we hear what really happened that Friday night when he got home and brought his wife roses. I mean, yes, the water spilled on him. Yes, he slapped her. But then we hear the voice saying, do it, Gordon. And we hear him start stabbing the shit out of her. And you can hear like the knife going in. And then you hear her screaming, no, and gargling. And then it's quiet for a moment. That fucking dog's barking for a while until it yelps and stops. And then the baby's crying. And then you hear that voice again say, do it, Gordon. And he screams and kills the fucking baby.
It's intense, and it really goes to show that you don't have to see everything to really feel the shock of it all. If anything, it's probably almost more shocking that they let it linger with the audio, but they didn't go into the graphics, the visuals of it. But I will acknowledge that whole sequence of him walking by those bodies is striking. Like the way the bodies are propped up, they look very much dead. I think Mike's body, especially, is really terrifying because he's laying there looking like dead into the camera as the camera slides by him. And the shot of Gordon running up behind him, I really wish we saw more of that. Like it looks spectacular, but it's flickers of moments. It's a couple frames of what happened. It's not enough. Yeah, I mean this whole revelation through this audio, as you're seeing visuals, of the family pinned to the wall of Mary's room and all of that, like it's just really handled in a way that it makes your skin crawl. It's horrific.
I mean, he's brought all of these photos from home. He has their wedding photo. He has like the baby's christening photo, and they're all on this wall, bloody. And not only that, but then we get the final shot, Roger, of him standing there in that room looking at these pictures. The cell phone now is clearly broken, but he is acting like he's talking to Wendy. He's like, Wendy, I want to come home. Can you forgive me? And he's just talking on this phone, touching the photos. And then the camera pulls out. We get the aerial shot of the hospital, and you hear the doctor ask Simon, and where do you live, Simon? And Simon says, I live in the weak and the wounded, Doc. And it fades out, and that's the end. So something is implied with that ending, Simon living in the weak and the wounded. That certainly describes Gordon by the start of this movie, tired. He's tired from being a father. He doesn't want to be in this situation. That's taking a toll on him. So, I mean, a lot is implied, but I don't know. I guess when I watched it the first time, when it first came out, I was probably leaning heavily more on this is a supernatural film. It's a supernatural film. Watching it these two times I did the last couple days for this viewing or for this episode, I don't know. I don't think this is a supernatural film. I think this is a film about mental illness and a man's descent into mental illness, causing him to do something horrific. And it just so happens that this hospital is the centerpiece around that. And yes, these tapes have a lot of similarities between what's going on in Gordon's world with what he did with his wife. But I don't think Gordon is possessed. I don't think anything is from the hospitals controlling him to do that. I think that if that was the case, he would have done it. He would have killed his wife much later into the film. I mean, like I said, I pointed out, I made a highlight earlier. Keep in mind, he kills his wife that very first night. I think I don't buy that he would have been affected that quickly. Being in the asylum for a half hour, you're going to go home and murder your wife. I don't buy it. Think about The Shining, how long it took for the hotel to affect Jack Torrance. So I love this movie still, but I look at it more as a psychological thriller about mental illness.
I feel like, the tapes are this amazing narrative tool that, again, we said is, I think, intentionally meant to leave it up to your interpretation. Like, I feel like the director had to have that be a personal goal, that they wanted to leave this open to interpretation, and that's why it's crafted the way it was. But I feel like, for me, if I'm going to step back and think that the tapes are almost a metaphor for his individual journey, and showing that how people don't have resources, a lot of these points that they touched on, like, this is a man who is trying to support a family. He has no means to really take care of his own troubles. He's being pushed to the brink, and he has no resources to benefit him to take care of what he's struggling with. But I also have to acknowledge, like, there are certain choices that were made by the team, by the director, to weave in elements of what would be the supernatural factor, specifically the voiceovers, and when we hear them, and when they come into play, and the impact that they have, and how directly they tie into what's happening. And that final line that you get from Simon, I do think it is heavily being implied that there is some evil in that space that connects itself to the weak and is basically pushing them beyond the point in which they can control their impulses. And I love that personally. Like, I mean, I'll say, I've said it a couple times before, but, like, I'm someone, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in the supernatural. I wish I did. I think life would be more exciting for me if I did. My personal life experiences at this point, I don't. So if I'm going to have a story that is handled with such care and so specific, this is scary to me because it doesn't feel elaborate and over the top, Troy. This is something that feels so rooted in reality that I can almost buy it. I almost buy that aspect of it being supernatural because it's so grounded in reality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think how interesting, because I'm the opposite. I totally believe in the supernatural. I totally believe in ghosts. I maintain that the house that I grew up in for the first 5 years of my life was haunted. There were things we all experienced that just you cannot explain. And so and I still to this day believe in the supernatural. I do believe ghosts, all that stuff. So how interesting that you don't, and you are attributing a supernatural element to this film. I do, and I'm not. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
But I want to acknowledge, like, I don't think I'm right. I think, again, I think this film can be open to interpretation. And I think that's the great thing about it. You're going to bring your own personal experiences to this film and come to your own conclusion. And I think perhaps maybe as a genre fan, I'm just so used to films, if they are going to have a supernatural element to it, to do it heavy handedly. And this one doesn't. So for me, it's like, oh no, there's nothing supernatural. I mean, I like the fact that it is mentioned, there are mentions of how mental health now in this country is unchecked. People aren't getting help anymore because there's no resources for it. That's why all these hospitals have to close. I think it's very apparent that when the film starts that Gordy is suffering mental illness of some sort. And I honestly think that in my mind, the film is even like more, for me, opposite of you, I think the film is more scary if it's just about this man who snapped and killed his family. And the mental hospital definitely is a metaphor for his descent into madness. Mary's journey mirrors his. I think it's intentional, but I think it's also coincidental when it comes to what he did. I mean, people snap all the time, and it's a scary thing that somebody that you think very well, you think you love, can have an episode that causes them to act out in a horrifically brutal, murderous way.
Right.
I mean, I think
Right.
that's scarier to me than, oh, he stepped into this mental hospital and something evil attached itself to him and he went home and killed his wife.
Well, and let me just be clear. Like, while my gut instinct may feel one way, I think this is a film that I will always have a polarizing view. like I think some weeks I'm gonna be like, it definitely is this, and some weeks I'm gonna be like, it definitely is that. And I'm never gonna like come to terms with something. But what an amazing rewatchability that is bestowed upon this film because of that. Because I'm gonna rewatch this film and I'm gonna look at it from your viewpoint. And I'm gonna explore that. And then I'm gonna challenge that, and I love that.
And that's the thing is like I did that. I was like I watched the first time and I was like, okay, I'm paying attention to Supernatural because I knew we were going to discuss the ending, and I knew I did not want to be one of those. I did not want to have a cop out answer like, oh, I think it could be either. I can't decide.
Right.
I wanted to have a solid answer, and
Right.
I watched it the first time. Like, okay, where are supernatural, like true supernatural things happening in this film? Well, first viewing, I'm like, I guess that could be. I don't know. And then the second viewing, I'm like, you know what? There's really nothing. There's nothing that is concretely supernatural. Again, my opinion. Someone that we're gonna ask our dear listeners, when you finish watching session 9, what are your thoughts on the ending? What are your interpretations? Do you think that Gordy was acting out of a supernatural control, or do you think this is a man that just snapped in this mental hospital, was in the backdrop of his ultimate mental break? It's an interesting, I don't think there's a wrong or right answer. I think the director would even tell you there's not a wrong or right answer. I think he very intentionally, like you mentioned, left the film open to interpretation.
Well, and I think that's one reason this film gets such positive reception at the end of the day. I know there are some people who have big opinions on what they think this film's about, or whether they think it's good or not. But I think the overall consensus from a critical standpoint is like this is actually a very well handled, well crafted film. And I personally think that regardless of what I think the outcome was, I think that getting there, the journey getting there, the character study, you mentioned that at the start of this, is very introspective and really wonderfully executed. And so I really, really, really very much enjoyed this film. And I think, we opened this episode talking about how much we love to interact with our listenership. And I just want to like kind of reiterate, like, this is a film that is a dialogue starter. Like, this is a conversation piece. This film was not meant for you to walk out of the movie and have like a personal quiet moment. This is a dialogue piece where you're going to sit down with someone and be like, what the fuck do you think happened? And I would love to hear genuinely, like truthfully, I'd love to hear some of your opinions because I want to be swayed. I don't know. I'm not 100% either way. I think I maybe have a gut feeling.
Yeah.
But let me hear your thoughts.
That's where I'm at. I came to an opinion because, like I said, I did not want to be like, oh, I don't know. I wanted to have my opinion. I can be swayed. Like if someone can point me to specific points in the film where, oh, I might be like, oh, you know what? I didn't notice that. You were right. I'm by no means am I saying my opinion's right. It's just based on my viewings of the film. It's the one I'm the most comfortable with. But we do want to hear your opinions. We also want to hear your opinions on Apple Podcast reviews, where you give us a little 5-star and you write us a little positive review. And then if you're so inclined, you head on over to patreon.com/Dark Night of the Podcast and subscribe to get some bonus content. But you know what? I want to engage in a conversation about session 9 on social media. So respond to our posts. Let us know your thoughts, your opinions, your questions you have for us about the film. Hit us. We will get back to you. But I have bigger issues at hand right now because, Roger, I need to know, because I have no clue, and I hope you do, I need to know what we are covering next week.
I came into this like realizing I had not put a lot of thought into it. And so I was like, what's a title that I think is going to bring a lot of people joy? And like certain people that I know that listen to this podcast regularly, I really think this is one that's going to just make their eyes light up. I'm going to cover Darkness Falls. I think it's time that we cover Darkness Falls. I think that we know a lot of people who really cherish this film. This is an early horror theater experience I remember having that really enchanted me, like when I was younger. I have not watched this movie in so long, but I think that this will be a really fun one. It's fantastical. It is significantly more fantastical than the film we just watched. And yeah, I just think that it's time that we cover this movie. What do you think?
I don't remember squat about this movie. Pure, I don't. I'm
Are you
looking.
serious?
No, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right now on IMDb. It has a 23 Metacritic score, which is universally panned. I think even I Know Who Killed Me got a better score than that. But I mean, I'm assuming I've seen it. I mean, I've heard of it, but Roger, I don't know. I don't remember 1 ounce of fucking.
You don't remember
No.
Darkness Falls?
No,
Oh.
I do not. I do not.
Do you know what it's about?
I'm looking. It says something about a tooth fairy. I don't know.
Oh my god! I know about a lot of lore, a lot of history about Darkness Falls. So know that we're coming into one with an educated woman who's about to really lay it down and make sure that the children are educated on what Darkness Falls. I'm going to make sure you all come out of that episode knowing a lot of shit about this.
And
movie.
I may have never seen it. I honestly I don't know. So I think it's fun.
Jesus,
I know.
yes.
I think it's fun that these last. I think it's fun these last couple episodes. We've chosen films that the other one has not seen or does not remember. Mikey was a first time viewing for you. I Know Who Killed Me was a first time viewing for me. This was a first time viewing for you. And now Darkness Falls. I'm going to treat it like a first time viewing because I don't remember shit about it if I did see it. So I'm excited. Yay, Darkness Falls. I'm going to have to top that the following week with something else. So I'll start thinking about that. But guys, yes, thank you for listening. Again, please let us know your thoughts on session 9. You still check out that I Know Who Killed Me episode. That's going strong. And we will be back next week with apparently a killer tooth fairy. Sounds like my cup of tea.
Oh, it's your cup of tea.
All right.
Yours and mine.
Perfect.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. All right, guys. Good night.
Good night, everybody.